me so much. I'm like, Lauren, I will go see Terry if you promise you'll just leave me alone, right?
I totally relate to that
Right.
story completely. Yeah,
Yeah,
nothing's
like,
going to happen. You're just going to go to
Yeah.
get the aunt
nothing's
off
going
your
to happen.
back.
It's a waste of money. I can't afford it. It's a waste of my time. She can't do anything. I've been to healers, all this stuff, right? But she convinced me. And so I went to see Terry, and she told me about the power of the subconscious. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? She introduced me to muscle testing, which is a way to check for subconscious blocks. And she asked me a lot of questions about my life and what had happened with my best friend and my health, about my first marriage that ended in divorce. And it was all very interesting. But I'm like, hey, lady, what does it have to do with my arm, right? I'm not here to talk about my feelings. I'm here because I'm in pain and I can't move my arm and my life is over. And so at the end of our session, she's like, okay, Brandt, don't worry, we'll take care of your arm. I'm like, yeah, right. What are you going to do, right? And so she kind of went into a trance for a few minutes. And I'm just sitting there looking out the window. And all of a sudden, I felt this pop inside my elbow. It was like a little firecracker went off. And I was like, whoa. And Terry heard me and she opened her eyes. She's like, okay, dear, try your arm now. And I did. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could move my arm again. And there was no pain. And that was truly the miracle that changed the direction of my life. I didn't understand what had happened. But as a scientist, as an engineer, all my paradigms were shattered in that moment. I realized everything I thought I knew about myself and life in the world was somewhere between incomplete and totally wrong. And it became crystal clear to me that this is what I had to do, that this was going to be my contribution to science and engineering. I thought it was going to be the internet, not so much. It was going to be this. And I remember asking Terry, I'm like, Terry, I don't know what you just did, but, can you teach me this? And she was like, sure, Brandt, we got a seminar coming in September. And so, long story short, I decided to become a professional healer. And it was kind of funny. When I first started with this, I was kind of arrogant. I figured this will be easy, right? Learning energy healing, intuition, piece of cake. I had straight A's in the most difficult major at the most competitive university in the planet. How hard can healing be? Well, it was really hard. You guys know why this was so hard for me?
Tell us. I'd love to know.
This is the crux of everything as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Because I was completely stuck in my mind.
That's right. Thank you.
I was totally in my head.
That's right.
Yeah.
I couldn't feel it all. And so it was really hard for me. It took me years and years. And I was not able to develop this intuitive sense, this ability to heal like most other people could, like Terry did. It was easy for her. And so I took the path, I'm going to try to reverse engineer this stuff. And so it took me almost 10 years, but I spent a lot of money, a lot of time going all around the world. I worked with a lot of incredible healers and shamans and mystics and intuitives and spiritual teachers. And I took a lot of notes and I paid close attention to what they did. I read a lot of research, especially the stuff that came out of SRI in the 70s when they studied remote viewing and paranormal phenomena. And long story short, little by little, I pieced together some pieces of the puzzle. I started to figure out what's really happening behind the scenes and figured out what works. And I took all of these different programs and systems and I ran them through what I call my new age nonsense filter. And because there's a lot of feel good nonsense that I found. And I wanted to filter all that out to find what really worked. And that was the creation that led to the creation of not only my Formula for Miracles technology, but the entire awakening dynamic system.
This is where also I want to ask here, because this also is a crux that so many go through. You have come from high tech, you've experienced the energy, and most of our logical minds will then say, okay, it's one or the other. There's this bag and there's this bag. You decided to put them together. And I want to know, at what point did you say, hey, maybe they can go and belong together?
It was funny. And a lot of that actually goes to childhood. That growing up, I was fascinated with science fiction and fantasy. I loved the idea of magic. And a huge inspiration for me was Star Wars. And the reason Star Wars was so powerful had nothing to do with outer space or laser guns. It was the Force. And I saw in Star Wars this beautiful marriage of what you might call mysticism and advanced technology. And that really stuck with me my whole life. Because if we look at Star Wars was not just a popular movie, it was a cultural phenomenon. It changed people's lives, including me. And I even have some YouTube videos I'm preparing right now on the Star Wars and the Force and what's real and what's not, because there's a lot of truth there, a lot of fictional stuff too. But I knew there was something there because I had grown up reading King Arthur, reading the Greek myths and the Norse myths and Lord of the Rings and things like that. And part of me desperately wanted magic to be real. But I also looked at things like Star Wars and Star Trek. And I believe it was Isaac Asimov who said that any sufficiently advanced technology cannot be distinguished from magic. So I had kind of seen them as two sides of the same coin. And to me, all the spiritual stuff, energy healing, intuition, channeling, law of attraction, is all technology. It's simply technology that engineers and scientists haven't quite cracked the code on. A good example would be electricity. Humans have known about electricity as long as we've been on the planet. Of course we have, right? We see lightning during thunderstorms. We feel the static shock when you touch something in the winter, right? But it wasn't until the 19th century and the laws of electromagnetism that Maxwell and others figured out that we figured out how the technology of electricity worked. And today it runs our entire world. We'd pretty much be helpless without it. It powers our homes. It moves our food around. It even drives our cars. So the way I see the power of the mind and the subconscious is similar to the role electricity had maybe 300 years ago, when Benjamin Franklin was running around with a kite with a key on it, trying to get lightning to strike it. We recognize the power, but it's sort of ad hoc. It's just every now and then it happens, but we don't really understand it. We can't control it. My goal has been to try to formalize that, to try to understand what's really going on behind the scenes. How does this stuff really work? What's the process for healing your body, for healing your mind, for making money? What's something that's reproducible? Another thing I ran into is this. On my journey around the world, I worked with some really incredible people who had some amazing gifts and talents, really mind-blowing stuff. But here's what I found. Most of them had some incredible natural gift or ability they were either born with or just developed at some point in their lives. Very few of them really understood what they were doing or how it worked. As a result, for most of these people, their students could not match them or surpass them. Why? Their students weren't born with the same gift. What I wanted to do was something different. I've made it since day one. I've said, I want my students to do better than you. I want to understand what's really going on so I can teach them step by step, not only to reach my level of ability and skill, but to go beyond it. And I think to some degree, I've been successful with that. And this is what this world needs. We need a little bit of rigor to find what works and what does not, to look at things with a more objective eye. Because for a long time, for many of us, the New Age stuff was a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's entertainment, a diversion. But the fact is now in the world, we got some major problems, people. This can't just stay a hobby. We need to break out the big guns. We need to advance the technology.
So obviously, at this point in this interview, you've accomplished this. You did. You put it together. Now you've got some tools. Here, I'll throw a term at you. What's movement feedback holography?
That is a process developed by my late mentor. His name was Carl. And to understand it, the way I would describe it is I see there are three generations of what I call consciousness technology. Quite simply, the first generation is your basic positive thinking law of attraction. So things like Think and Grow Rich, The Secret, Masterminds, Vision Boards. It's a great start. It's true in a sense, but for most people, it's insufficient. In engineering, there's a saying, necessary but insufficient. In other words, it's necessary to think positively, but that alone is not always going to change your life. It probably won't make you rich. And the law of attraction has a documented failure rate of 99%. So there's something there, but it's not enough. When we move into the second generation, that's when things get interesting. With the second generation, we develop processes and techniques to directly access the subconscious mind using the theta state. So things like Psych-K, healing code, emotion codes, body codes, things like that. So there's dozens of modalities out there that all work on the same premise, that we use muscle testing to check for subconscious blocks, and then have different processes and techniques to shift and move those things around. This is a huge step forward because that's when we start to see the medical miracles occur. That's when you start to see people healing from cancer, coming out of chronic pain, healing from depression, broken bones healing overnight, people with HIV going to undetectable viral loads. And this stuff really works, but it's not anywhere close to 100%. And I've been doing a lot of great second-gen work for decades, and I'm getting close to my 2,000th miracle. As we record this now, I'm at 1,942. So I'm getting close. And that's genuine miracles that confound doctors and show up on metal scans, right? People who have cancer disappear, things like that. But I'd say even for me, and I'm really good at this, my success rate is maybe 15, 20, 25%. So I'll see maybe 2, 3 to 5 miracles a week, doing like 15 sessions. So I wanted to do better. And it was my late mentor that introduced me to the third generation. And there's no one else out there doing this the way I am, to my knowledge. The third generation, including the movement feedback technology, is a combination of awakening, which is often called non-duality in the East, Advaita Vedanta or Jnana Yoga, to understand what the self is, that we're all empty. There's no one actually here. Everything is simply the divine well in motion, that the universe is a field effect. We're not discrete objects. It is a unified field that essentially God does everything to itself, to put it simply. So it's an understanding of putting the ego in its place and understanding the truth of the consciousness. At the same time, we recognize that to create practical effects in the world, it's really about what we might call your connection to the quantum field. That's chi, ki, prana, life force, God, divine essence. We're full of it when we're born. And it's so interesting to me that my son, when he was born, the day he was born, he entrained me into the quantum field more powerfully than anybody ever had, even my late mentor. By the second day, it was gone. So it's squeezing life. The society squeezes the consciousness, the divine essence, out of our bodies and our minds. And the movement feedback holography and the third generation work is about literally putting consciousness back into the parts of us that have squeezed it out.
I have a question as you go here, and this is one that I'm just throwing at you. I know you've got some awesome tools, and you're telling me that the healing rate is, of course, from your standpoint, is low, but still amazing. You're getting all these miracles, and I'm now as an engineer asking, well, why isn't it 100%? Why isn't it 80%? Tell me, do you think that a person's belief, their consciousness, has an influence on even using,
Absolutely.
for instance, your tools?
Yes. When we use, especially the second, even the third gen tools, it's really just about rearranging belief systems. We call it digging or belief work is what it's called. That we have all these subconscious beliefs we hold. That's the code that creates your reality. It's that simple. It's just like your computer, your cell phone. It's an electronic device that has a bunch of code on it. You run the code, it creates a program, right? A program for your web browser, for your email, for watching YouTube or Facebook or whatever. And you change the code, you change the program. Humans are no different. We all have a program inside of us for how much money we make, for our physical health, for our sense of purpose, for our self-esteem. It goes on and on. It's all just coded into the subconscious. And the first, second, third generation technologies are simply different ways of getting in and rearranging or reprogramming this code. Some are faster, more powerful than others. Just like if you want to get around, you could ride a bicycle, you could drive a car, or you could fly in an airplane. They're different technologies. If you want to get somewhere, you probably want to use all of them. So the second or third isn't always better than the first, it's just different. So if I want to go to 7-Eleven, I'm going to walk to my car and drive my car there. I need both. If I want to go to Japan, I'm going to walk to my car, drive my car to the airport, and get on an airplane and fly. So that's how I see it, that our subconscious mind is the software of your soul. It's the code that creates and runs every aspect of your life.
Tell us about I want to know about the tools.
We're running out of time, Lee.
Yeah,
so what I want to do is,
sorry.
what I would love to do is have you take our viewers through a subconscious block clearing exercise so that we can get I loved your description of how you explained from your software engineering background as to how we manifest health, love, finance through our lives based on our subconscious program. And really all we need to do is rearrange that subconscious program. And I mean, your life is an example, not to make this trite, but your story, it sounded like one of those country music songs where you lose everything. And you've turned all of that around and are now helping others do that. So if we can, I'd love to have that exercise.
So I'll do a quick belief shift for everybody. Normally, when I work with someone, at least one-on-one, I will have them use muscle testing to check what beliefs you hold or do not hold. It'll take a little bit of time to teach everyone that, so I'm going to skip that for right now. But there's a lot of information on my website, and I have a YouTube channel that can teach you that. It takes me about 10 to 15 minutes to teach someone how to check their subconscious. I just don't want to spend that time here. So for those of you that already know how to do it, what we're going to do is we're going to do one quick download and one click block clearing. A download is when we add in a new program to the subconscious. It's just like downloading something off the internet. If you want to play Tetris on your phone, you got to go and download the program, right? Then you can run it. Life is the same. If you want to be healthy, if you want to make $1 million, fall in love, buy a home, you've got to have the program running. So that we'll do a download as an example. We'll also do a block clearing. A block is a bad program, an obstacle. So we're going to download for everybody, I know what joy feels like. We're going to do a block clearing on I have a vow of poverty, because that's a very common one. About 25% of the population runs around with an unconscious vow of poverty you got from your ancestors. And nowadays, almost nobody takes a vow of poverty unless you've been a monk or a nun or lived in an ashram, but we're still carrying it inside of us. Because about 70% of our subconscious beliefs are inherited through the DNA. So a lot of the work we do with people is clearing out the old stuff. These beliefs worked great 100, 500 years ago. They don't work as well today. Just like if you were really good at making buggies for horses, you could have had a great business 200 years ago. Today, you're going to start at that. Why? The environment has evolved. Technology has changed. So for those that already know the muscle testing, go ahead and muscle test, I know what joy feels like. And I have a vow of poverty, and see what your subconscious says. And for those that don't worry, I can teach you this. It just takes about 10, 15 minutes. It's pretty easy to learn. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to download for everybody here, everybody watching. I'm going to put the new code into your subconscious so you know what joy feels like. You ready? Let's do it. All right. All done. Wasn't that easy?
I love it.
Now, it seems like nothing happened. It's just I've highly optimized the process. I can do it in a matter of milliseconds. So when I teach it to people, you'll be able to do it in about 5 seconds after I teach you. With practice, you can get it down to about 10 to 50 milliseconds. It's just a matter of optimization. Same thing I did with computers. Now we're going to do the block clearing on I have a vow of poverty. So wait for it, and there we go. So for anyone that already knows the muscle testing, go ahead and check it right now. What you'll find is with this simple process, it's about 90 to 95% effective in adding code to the subconscious or clearing out a block. It's not 100% because there are some blocks that are deeply embedded that may take some more work. We call that the digging process. It's kind of like pulling a weed out of your garden. If you clip off the part on top, it may not get rid of it. Sometimes you got to get out, your little gardening tool and dig down to the bottom to pull it out by the root. But more often than not, these quick processes can make a permanent lifetime shift. And this is exactly what Terry did to me back on that day when I experienced my first miracle. She simply led me through a process of subconscious block clearings and downloads. And then at the end, did a theta wave instant healing process, and boom, I experienced a miracle and never looked back.
Oh, wonderful. I feel different energetically after that.
I love everything you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brandt, you have some special offers for our guests, and please tell people where they can find out about your website and go for more information.
Sure. My website is awakeningdynamics.com. That's awakeningdynamics.com. So you can go on there. You should see a lot of cool stuff. What you'll see after coming to the show is a special offer to get my most important transformational program called 30 Days to Awakening at a 90% discount. And this is a 30-day guided journey, a combination of lecture presentations and encoded subconscious block clearings to open us up to the truth of ourselves and God. The reason I call the system Awakening Dynamics is awakening is the foundation. Long story short, I was in my 40s before I woke up. And when awakening started to happen for me, it felt like being hit in the gut. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe everything I thought I knew about myself and life and God was totally wrong. So I want to install that foundation first, because that is the beginning of the end of suffering. That is the foot in the door to enlightenment. That is the gateway to what Hawkins called the 500 vibration. So I really, really want to help wake up the world. So for those that are interested, check out my website. You can get an invitation to one of my free webinars, where I'm going to talk a lot more about all the 7 sacred tools, do some quantum field entrainment exercises, which is really mind-blowing. For many people, within 3 to 5 minutes, I can turn on your ability to see auras and energy and past lives with your open eyes. But it does take a little bit of time and a little bit of setup. But I would love for you all to come to one of my Healathon webinars, where I can talk about all these technologies in more detail and do some interactive exercises with you, because I don't just want to talk to you about it. I want you all to experience this for yourself, right? It's one thing for me to talk about how wonderful my cell phone is. It's another for you to buy your own and use it, right? I could sit and talk about how delicious my meal is. I want you to taste it.
Well, this has been a delicious meal,
Absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned.
And thank you, and bless your auntie for
yes.
pushing you to go and have that session, which not just changed your lives, but the lives of so many.
God bless her.
Yeah, I never thought that being nagged would be such a life change.
We won't go into that one.
Yes.
That's a whole other program. We, folks, and Brent, we are out of time. And thank you, my friend, so much for being here.
Yes.
And I think we're just going to have to go to the break.
Yes,
All
we're going
right.
to take 10 minutes, and then we'll see you back here for the Circle of 12.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back from the break. It was great. I love Brandt because he's a nerd like I am.
Yeah, I mean, who else but an engineer would want to reverse engineer miraculous healing?
Truly, I never would have thought of something like that, but that instantly, he saw the reality of it.
I loved how he talked about
happened
the
to him.
software program, the device.
I know.
That's just our body and the subconscious. So, yeah, very nice perspective.
Yeah. Not only that, he helped start the internet. Mm-hmm. That was good.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
He really did.
Yeah, he did. And if it wasn't for the internet, we wouldn't be connecting in this beautiful way
that's
right
true.
now.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's go into the Circle of 12. What do you think?
I think that's why we're here.
Yeah.
All right.
Wonderful. Well, we want to use this preparation time for the Circle of 12 to send love and compassion to our global family. Right now, someone is hurting, someone is in fear, someone is in pain. And so we want to send a wave of love to that person. We don't have to specify any outcome, just to send a wave of love and compassion towards those on our planet who are in this moment not aware of their sacred divinity, not aware that they have a partner, the Creator, not aware that they have the tools within them to create their own healing. And so we want to just send a wave of love and compassion through the ethers, through the golden threads that connect all of us in this soup of energy, the human global soul, sending out pieces of love to all of us within this global human soul group, so that they feel comfort in this moment. There is someone that cares. There is someone that loves them, and they are never truly alone. In fact, it's impossible to be alone when you are part of a soul that has no beginning and no end. There is an eternalness there and a oneness there. And in this collective oneness, we welcome in Kryon so that we can go through another Circle of 12 experience.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon. Come a little closer. There are so many who tune in to a message such as this, hoping so much to find more than they thought was ever there. In some way, perhaps. They're looking for answers. There are so many in trouble at the moment on this planet right now. It seems like this is a time when there are more issues than there have ever been before. Not just third world countries, first world countries. It's like diversions of consciousness. Well, there are so many things to disagree on. And if you see that as well, dear ones, I will tell you something that my partner briefly mentioned. In the questions and answers that occurred this month, there were several had the same tonality of consciousness that said, why do I feel dark things are growing? Why are they touching me in ways that they've never touched me before? What is going on at the moment? I want to review with you, in this particular time that you've tuned in, something I told you about years ago. And back then it was simply words. Get ready for this, get ready for that. Today it's at your house. And I'm not talking about a virus. I'm talking about a change on this planet of dark and light. If I told you that darker energy of humanism, of the way people think, was the way of the past on this planet for eons, I think you'd understand I was right. The atrocities that have occurred, the wars, all of the things that people would call human nature, we told you, would begin to shift. People are waiting for the shift. When is it happening? It's upon you, dear ones. And then we started telling you the attributes of what a shift would look like. There are so many stories about one day it's dark and another day it's light. So many stories about an instantaneous change on the planet, where consciousness and angels come down, and it's almost like magic, and the darkness is gone, and the light is here, and everyone is happy. That is not the reality of consciousness shift anywhere. It hasn't been on any planet either. Those are storybook pictures or metaphors of what you hope will happen. In order to go to a lighter consciousness, the dark consciousness must be defeated. And in this new energy, there is more light to defeat it than there ever has been before. Light to defeat old consciousness must come from lighter consciousness. It doesn't come from an angelic realm. It comes from you. On how you treat one another, how you treat the situations. Can you understand that this is the time where an older, darker consciousness of this planet is seeing it's in trouble, and it will push the envelope of darkness right at you to make you believe it's hopeless, to make you believe you haven't got a chance, when all along you've got that box of light ready to open it. And when you do, darkness cannot exist. When you turn on a light, darkness cannot be there. Light is active, darkness is passive. How many of you have opened that box of light? You're here for the circle of 12, and I know why. So this is the next tool, the metaphor I want to tell you about. We're going to practice that tool in a metaphoric way in the circle of 12 tonight. The tool, again, is a metaphoric tool that you have within you, a box. Be interesting to see what that box looks like for so many of you. What's it made out of? How big is it? But inside the box is the grandness and the lighter consciousness that can conquer any darkness that is around you. As soon as you open that box, it's interesting. There'll be a lot of kerfluffle, just like when you turn on a light in a room that's been dark for years. It almost seems like things wrestle a little bit and change, because suddenly you can see it, they can see you. They, meaning the energies, perhaps even the elementals that are always there. I'll tell you this, the earth, Gaia, so many energies besides humans, have been so ready for this, but they can do nothing. It's all up to you with this box of light. The timing is perfect. There are so many things to argue about. There are so many things that'll bring you into a darker place than you were before. If you let them, you may not even recognize the box that you have on your lap. The circle of 12 designed to take you to a place with unknown energies that have always been there. A place to take you from a black and white world into a color world. It's so interesting in those few human beings on the planet who have only been in black and white and have been then given color. It's so interesting to see how long it takes them to identify what has happened. Some of them are so confused they wish to go back to black and white. That's how startling color can be to one has only had a monovision of black or white. This is so common even in psychology that I'm saying that even when you see things that you don't understand that are grand and glorious, you may not see them as grand and glorious. You may see them instead as another kind of a puzzle to solve instead of what truly they are. That's the unknown. That's taking from a linear cellular standpoint into a non-linear, way beyond cellular standpoint, where you're part of your soul. I want you to come across that bridge with me right now. A bridge that is a metaphor. It's not real. A bridge is in your consciousness, waiting to be crossed by your consciousness. The things that you're used to, the things that you've been told work a certain way, all suspended. Ask a scientist what happens in multidimensionality. And the scientist will look at you and say, we are still studying it because we don't understand it fully. It's difficult to grasp those things that don't act the way you were taught they should act, either in physics or in consciousness. The bridge is there for us to cross. I want to take your hand. Let's see what is there tonight. Let's see what is there tonight. Take my hand. Let's go across the bridge. Dear ones, we walk into a place that you don't understand. Perhaps you never have understood it. And that is the point. We say it again. Don't try to understand it. Don't have a visualization and then try to interpret it. Your consciousness is going to do whatever it does to make sense of a multidimensional world. Already, if you're paying attention, there is an energy of consciousness of love that is upon you. It's thick. That is the only word that I can use for a love that goes beyond understanding, that touches every cell, that tells you that there is more than you know even about yourself, that you're bigger than you know, and most of all, there's no problem that can't be solved. This is the bigger you. It is the soul you. It's the place of contentment, a peace. It's the place where you can smile and be safe. It's joyful. There are no dark energies here because it is a temple. There's no duality here because you've just entered a sacred soul, yours, not the human being's brain. You're in a very, very special place that is sacred. because it's that part of you which is forever. It existed before the universe, it will exist afterwards, and it has your name on it, and we've said that before. That's who you are. You go through that door, which we have presented so many times, which represents going from one energy to another. You pass through it and you see in your mind, if you wish, or imagine, a theater in the round. This one tonight, a little different. All of you collectively are being asked to go through this, but it is one at a time. And say, honey, I know you don't necessarily understand or like what I'm into and what I'm doing. Honestly, it's not a cult. And then promise to say, I'm not going to evangelize you. I'm not going to take you to the meetings, even though if you want to come, I'll go. In other words, you're safe. It's okay. Just, leave me alone and see what they do. Number 2, you ready? Show to them your own tolerance to the things that bother you about them. If you've been in a marriage or a coupling long enough, there's always things that irritate you about each other. I mean, that's just the way things work, and you get through it or you don't. It's probably the most magic thing you could do that they would see is how you change regarding the things that would irritate you about them, and suddenly they don't. Or at least you have got to a place where you have peace over things that you never did before. Often that significant other will see what's actually working with you. That's the proof. So it's not an evangelistic, it's about living with them and showing them you're a sweeter, gentler, kinder person, even if they're not, you see? So it goes a long way. You're more forgiving, you're more loving. Then this is careful. Careful, careful, careful. Number 3, I have to say it. If none of this works, don't let that other person destroy your peace, your relationship with Spirit. Don't let them do that. There may come a time when you have to tell them you're no longer able to stay. I'm talking truth. I'm talking the way things are. That would hopefully be the last thing you'd have to do. But that answers the question.
Beautifully put, Lee. We could probably expand on that for another hour, but I think the essential ingredients of the question have been answered. And so I would like to go to just one more question in this section, and it comes from Kim. Kim is in Melbourne, Australia, and Kim is asking, can you meditate too much with Kryon and the Circle of 12? And also, how many times can you upgrade yourself, as we did in the Circle of 12 meditation from the 9th of June? Can you overdo it too? And for those of you who don't remember that June of 9, Kryon Circle of 12, well, in that series, Kryon gave a channel about rewriting sacred truths, and that channel before the Circle of 12 was about self-worth, worthiness. And the Circle of 12 exercise, Kryon asked us if we gave permission to be enhanced. And so those who said yes, we're getting an upgrade in that experience. So bottom line, can we meditate too much?
Do you remember, Kryon, using the word upgrade? I don't. You might. But
maybe.
But
it was about being enhanced.
It really was about being enhanced.
Right. And receiving the energy.
So how many times can you be enhanced? That's the question, right? Can I meditate too much? Can I enhance myself too much? I love this because it's an example of how all of us think. And we think in a linear way, and we pull in the things that we've been taught about, all the linear things in my life and your life. For instance, what happens when you overeat? You have wonderful food and it's good for you, but can you ruin it by overeating? That's a very linear question. But can you? All right, here's the answer. Kim, how much love can you receive? Can that be overdone? Could you be in a situation where you were loved beyond measure and have enough? I think you would say, no. You can do this over and over and over, and it's only going to enhance your life. So that's the model I use, and it is different from overeating or any other linear things. It's the same with the Circle of 12 experience. We tell people to take that and relive it over and over. Put it as a tape that you play over and over so you can find the peace that you had while you were in the Circle of 12, perhaps when you're in a situation which is less peaceful. It works. It really does. And so you cannot overdo it, but it's a great question.
It is. And I know you and I have had discussions before about meditation and how there are what we call meditation warriors.
Oh, yeah.
And Kryon even identified in Channel one time that we tend to be one of 5 types of people, and one of those was those who meditate. And so, Kim, that may be you. You may be a meditation warrior, and that's okay.
Which means you just want to stay in meditation and feel the grandness. Anyone who is in that position is helping the planet.
Yes.
Because in that meditation state, and we've talked about this before, but when you're really connected, everything you're doing is helping the planet and Gaia and the people. And there are meditation warriors who just want to sit and help the planet.
And speaking of meditation, let's do exactly that to prepare ourselves for a channel from Kryon. And there's many different types of meditation. Some meditation is without words, where you simply go into nature, into Gaia, and connect in with the energy that's around you. And I'd like to just do a visual guide of being in Gaia right now, wherever you are. Feel, sense, imagine being in a sanctuary, peaceful, tranquil place of Gaia. And what does that feel like to you? What is your landscape? You may be by the ocean. You may be in the mountains. You may be within a forest. You may be beside a lake. You may be within the desert, watching the flowers that have bloomed after a beautiful rain event. You could be by a waterfall. Whatever that place is for you, just feel and sense that connection. As you tune into that connection, Gaia knows exactly what you're doing in this moment. And so there is a beautiful partnership being acknowledged right now, where you are feeling and sensing the unconditional love from Gaia. And in that same moment, there is an equal wave of love being sent down into the planet. From the energy of your feet, you may even feel that connection to our beautiful planet. And with this grounded connection with the planet, your partner, Gaia, we now welcome in the beautiful, loving message from Kryon. Hello everyone, and welcome to Healing Wednesdays and the Circle of 12. I'm Monica Morani.
And I'm Lee Carroll. Healing Wednesdays, you know that because you're here, is a time when we come together every week with special guest questions and answers, discussions, meditation, and channeling. Well, this is a members meeting. You know that because you had to be there in your portal and you had to touch a link. Or did you? Now, some of you have copied that link because it's almost always the same, and that's how you get to the broadcast that we do every single week. Well, if you do that, you've missed going to the portal, because in the portal there's really cool stuff. In fact, I know this because in the chat area, some of you who actually got to this place by going to the portal and touching the link are asking what's in the portal. So let me tell you, a lot. First of all, there's an audio of every program. There's a program just like this one in Spanish. There's an index that Monica has made. Did you know that for over a year, you can look up all the programs with dates, find out who the guests were, find out what Kryon channeled about, and what we did in the Circle of 12. All of that information is there for you to take a look at. Then, all of those replays are in the portal. They're forever as long as you're a member. There's no limit on the number, and they keep growing. We've got a year's worth now. By the time we're done with this year, we'll have over 100. How about that? So, members, again, thank you for being here with us and for hopefully enjoying some of the things that are in that portal. By the way, did you see that there's an extras part of the portal? Did you? Maybe there's things in there you didn't know about. Streaming. Sometimes it's frustrating. We say this all the time. If it starts and it stops, just cancel everything out and watch it later. That is truly what we'd love to have you do, rather than trying to suffer through a program that continues to be interrupted and recycle and refresh and turn on the audio, turn off. What kind of an experience is that? That's not the one we designed. So we encourage you to just wait until approximately an hour after the program, and there's a beautiful replay there that will work perfectly. So, thank you.
Well, now I want to move to the question and answer section of the program, and the guidelines are very simple. Most of you know them off by heart by now. Ask a question others may be interested in. No personal questions like, what do I do about my husband or my situation or my psychic dog or cat? Make those questions concise and short. And finally, you will find how you can submit a question in your portal. Submit a question, that's the little icon you want to look for. Or you can go to cryonmasters.com/questions. So let's move to our first question. Zoe from Greece. She is asking, is it possible for an old soul to be unloving and unforgiving? What do you think, Lee?
Absolutely.
Yes.
No, let's get this straight. You know, we're in a very gentle family.
Yes.
We're in an old soul family.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to believe that any old soul that comes along is automatically going to be more mature.
Yeah, and loving and giving.
Loving life. Well, being an old soul just gives you the tools to use if you should awaken to that larger truth in this life. It does not mean that you'll automatically become a light worker or a compassionate person. However, there are some fun things that we've seen with seminars, especially. You have to remember that before we started broadcasting in these years, Monica and I traveled for a living. This is what we did. We were someplace every week. I would say there was more things that we recognized in our suitcases than in the drawers at home. That is just the way it was. So we gave seminars. And in that, we got to see people come and go and come and go and come and go. And in the process, we would see over a number of years some trends that happened and some of the same faces. And I remember this happened over and over. There would be people who would bring their significant others, and this is both men and women. And you could tell that those significant others didn't want to be there because they would, first of all, they'd snore and they'd do all kinds of things. And then suddenly we get a story. And the story is that by being exposed to that which we have taught, even though they might be half asleep or whatever, that over the years, those old souls that they brought with them, perhaps their husbands or their wives, were starting to get it, to awaken, to see that there was a higher truth, because they sat in the energy of it. So many times we've had wives and husbands bring their significant others and have a full awakening, and they will say, this I knew when I married him or her, I was marrying an old soul, but they never showed any signs of it. I'll call them closet light workers. And it was only later when you got to see it because they were exposed to it. So these are fun things to think about. But the answer to your question is no. It's no guarantee that there'll be an awakening.
So moving on to the next questions, there's two similar ones, and you'll see that there's a theme carrying on from Zoe's question, because now we have Valerie from San Jose in the US, and she is asking, what advice do you have if those you love are on different levels of a spiritual path? We are not in sync. I continue to send love, and then I find myself protecting my energy at the same time to avoid being affected by their negativity. Now, this next question, I've kept you anonymous because your significant other may also be watching, so I don't want to give you away, beautiful angel. But her question was, how can we, as we become more aware, help those who are not, but they're trying to? Okay, yes, I mean my husband, but at least it's not my psychic cat. I love your humour. There must be frustration in other houses as one spouse is growing spiritually and the other is trying but feels nothing. So you can see the similarity between those two questions. And I have a feeling, Lee, it's very common. Like you said, one spouse is on a spiritual path, or even just with loved ones, not even their spouse. It's the same issue. You are growing, others are not. How do you deal with that?
Because, and again, I'll go back to our seminars, and you talk to the attendees in the breaks and all like that, and sometimes you go to dinner with them and all this, and we find out this is extremely common. So it's also extremely difficult because there's no one answer. Both cases, in both of these questions, we're talking about significant others were not on board, on the same path with the belief system that would feature what we teach, compassion, gentleness, kindness. You know, what we teach is not a doctrine. It's not about being with somebody else's, they have a different religion. That's completely different. It is truly a way of life. What we teach is a way of being. It's an awakening to perhaps a higher truth. So that in itself is a tough one to explain to your significant other when they say, well, what church is involved? And you'll say, there isn't one. And you say, well, where's the scripture? And you'll say, well, there isn't one. So immediately they will say cult. So you've joined a cult. I can see that, you're enamored by this and all that. That makes it even worse. This is an awakening to a higher and more spectacular truth. That is what we're experiencing. All right. The first thing we teach is to ask that significant other for tolerance. This means that you're going to have to face off and say, honey, I know you don't necessarily understand or like what I'm into and what I'm doing. Honestly, it's not a cult. And then promise to